Been watching an excellent show called Battlestar Galactica. You may have heard of it. I'm watching the 2004 reboot of it. It's a fantastic show. Uh, there is a scene, or I guess this happens a lot in this show, but people strategize. It's kind of a space war drama, right? So they strategize. They have a captain who is in charge of strategizing how to plan their attack or defense or what have you. And when that comes on screen, I can't help but think about Go and how the most common analogy or metaphor we use with Go is general leading a war and commanding your troops. And I thought, wow, that's cool. Like, you have a sneak attack and everything, and you have decoys and managing troops and deceiving and things like that. But when you play Go, or when I play Go, I don't really feel that level of strategy. I guess it's a different flavor of strategy. I don't feel like I can hide my troops in a Trojan horse and then, infiltrate the base in that way. It's not quite the same, right? It is a game that has its own quirks after all, right? It's not necessarily one-to-one with a war simulation or anything. But I did also think about why can't it be more like that? How come that kind of strategy doesn't work? One of the things I thought about was that in war or in battles and things like that, you have a very specific situation where you have certain conditions, a number of troops, and resources, ammo, and food, and supplies, and geography, and there's so much stuff that goes into that. And Go is a lot more abstract, and what makes it even more different is that when you start a game of Go, it's completely blank. It's just like no general has ever started out with a blank canvas. They had a set army that they could invest into grow, or they didn't have power to increase the resources. They had a specific enemy or maybe pre-existing political conditions. None of that stuff exists in Go. So in that way, Go is kind of a purified form of battle. We don't have to think about like what the biases are and what your upbringing was and all that. But well, I guess you kind of do think a little bit about your upbringing if you were maybe like a Go kid, or if you discovered it later on. That does come into play. But overall, it's a blank canvas, and that just doesn't happen in the real world. And yet, you are playing on this blank canvas where you really can't come up with a strategy in the beginning, right? You're facing a blank canvas. You just have to play good moves that are in the corners, moves that are enclosures, right? You just kind of set up. And yet, at some point during the game, you find yourself in the woods, deep and lost, scared, surrounded on all sides, uncertain about this and that. And it's just, at some point in the game, things get real. But it's not like that from the start. And I'm wondering, that's, I guess, maybe a good way to describe the transition from the opening to the middle game, right? But it's quite a fascinating thing because we start off with nothing. And then we suddenly become super specific in our situation and we start implementing strategy. So I think what I'm trying to say is there's a special moment in Go where things turn around and your general strategist brain is called to action. You're listening to Startpoint, the show about Go for Go fans away from the board. And today we're going back in time again. I'm going to be reading some more of my blog entries from back in the day, my Go blog. I kept a Go blog a long time ago, and they're here for me to read as part of these podcast episodes. I did one of these episodes already. This was episode 118, called One Stone, Two Stones, Three Stones. I read a few of those, and now this is a continuation. So if you haven't checked out that episode, you're free to listen to this one without, but that's there if you're interested in the earlier entries, because I am going in chronological order. So let's get into it. This entry was written in 2019. It's called No Aji, No Problems. And what I did every entry is I wrote my current rank. And my current rank, when I wrote this entry, was OGS 12Q, TieGem 15Q. This is back when I was playing on TieGem. I remember playing on TieGem and getting consistent games, and then at some point I couldn't, and then I switched to Fox. OGS 12Q. This was before the OGS ratings adjustment of 20, I don't remember. It was like at some point after the COVID era, I think OGS adjusted the rating system, and I passed over to SDK that way. Okay, so let's get into it. Today, winning didn't give me an adrenaline rush. It was calm, collected, and earned. My opponent was 12Q on OGS and is the highest ranked player I have ever beaten. Wow, that's crazy. I've never thought about the moment I've beaten a 12Q and was just like, that was a momentous occasion. And that, that's, as you get stronger, you lose perspective as to like what is difficult. And you're like, 12Q, come on, that's nothing. That's cake. Right. And then you have me back then just writing about how proud I was to beat a 12Q. So if you are 12Q, be proud of where you are, because it's not easy to get there. And this blog is a reminder to me that it wasn't easy to get there because I was struggling. He played in a very passive style in the opening, as did I. I've been trying to apply the things that I have learned from the books I have been reading. I have also been doing Tsumego in my head, and all that hard thinking paid off during this game. I'm beginning to understand a little better the value of influence. I really felt as though I used my time well that game. I played good strong moves quickly, and at other times spent time thinking and reading out life and death. I also spent some time thinking about strategy, which is kind of new to me. Things like, if I develop around this area, then what will the whole board outcome be? I made a crucial connecting move and my opponent said, good. That's interesting. That I think the opponent, sometimes when you see that, when the opponent says good, what I'm interpreting is that they were hoping that I didn't do that, and they acknowledged that I saw whatever tomfoolery they were planning on committing against me. As I read some of this stuff, I see stuff that's still in my head as a 3Q, OGS 3Q. I'm beginning to understand a little bit better the value of influence. That sentence alone, that's like, what? I'm still thinking I'm beginning to understand the value of influence. And then the other one that stood out was I spent some time thinking about strategy, which is new to me. And I'm also thinking like, well, strategy is also kind of new to me right now. And it's been years. And it's like maybe every Go player thinks about the same things, but in the different levels, right? As a DDK, I was thinking, oh yeah, I should start thinking about strategy. As an SDK, I'm like, oh yeah, I should start thinking about strategy. I don't know. It's just a never-ending loop. Continuing. Then, after we had settled that area where he died massively, he proceeded to make a bunch of testing moves that were almost rude. For example, he played out a few stones of a ladder. He should have resigned a little earlier than he did, but he did resign at least. Stress eases as a winning game comes to a close as all Aji disappears. I played very solidly, but tried hard not to play redundantly. That's a good approach. You're gonna go far. Your OGS 12Q. You're gonna climb the ranks with that mentality. Play solidly, but don't play too redundantly. At one point, I thought my opponent messed up and missed a capturing opportunity that would have saved his huge group and turned the game around completely. But as I stared at it in disbelief, I noticed that I was safe all along. Becoming stronger at Go is like wearing all of your trauma as armor. P.S. TieGem has a lot of sandbaggers, so the games are really varied. But overall, they seem stronger than OGS counterparts. Oh, interesting comment. I never would have thought TieGem had stronger opponents. It kind of reflects on my rank, TieGem 15Q, but if I was experiencing a lot of sandbagging, which I guess as you climb the ranks, you will find fewer sandbaggers because, you're not going to. I would say that a 1Q sandbagging as a 15Q is more likely than a 6-dan sandbagging as a 1Q. I don't know. I just think sandbaggers are going to stay at the lower ranks. But yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of this stuff, again, it sounds familiar to me, like they're my current thoughts. But one of the things that stood out to me that has definitely changed is the fact that the win was by a huge death. Like that stuff doesn't really happen as you climb the ranks. It still happens for sure, but I would say that like if you see the death a mile away, it's like, I don't know. I feel like it just doesn't happen as often as you climb the ranks, and the fact that this was calm, collected, and earned is how I described this win. Although, like, if it was a huge death, I wouldn't have considered it a calm, collected, and earned win. Maybe it just qualitatively felt that way because of the moves I was playing, and the death didn't feel like I was stabbing my opponent, but more like my opponent kind of buried himself. But yeah, I think that just doesn't happen as often, and that's really like one of the only differences I see here between this mentality and my current mentality. No Aji, no problems. I think Aji is a big theme for DDKs. Aji comes back and bites you in the rear when you are climbing the ranks in the early goings, because you kind of don't understand what's like solid and what's not. And as you climb the ranks, you understand more and more of that. And what Aji, you have a very, very distinct taste. And it's funny because Aji kind of means taste, but a sense for Aji. And it's like the stronger you get, you start treating Aji as, oh yes, I know there's a level of Aji there and I'm leaving it there for strategic purposes, versus early ranks is like, I don't know what Aji exists on the board. I don't see anything that can happen. And then something happens and you start to train that sense. Okay, let's move on to the next entry. This was written in, this was written like the next day or a couple days later. Dirty Brawlers of Taijem. OGS 13Q, Taijem 14Q. Looks like I dropped OGS rank and rose in Taijem rank. Logged on to Taijem today and discovered that I had been promoted to 14Q. I played against another 14Q as white and won. I lost a group of about 16 in the early game. 16? Dang, I would have... Like, listen, if you're DDK and you lose 16 in the early game, keep going, I guess. Because if you lose 16 in the early game as me, in my rank, no. As a result, I was way behind, and he had a massive top right corner. I considered resigning, but it was so early in the game that I decided to press on. Boy, am I glad I did. He lost group after group, playing strange moves that gave me the upper hand in fights. My first loss seemed like a precise calculation of a capturing race, but after playing through the rest of the game, it seemed like it was a lucky bout on his end. I cut off group after group, measuring my own strength against his, and he eventually devolved into playing completely nonsensical moves. Eventually, I started passing because he was squirming with a dead group between two of my alive groups. Yeah, again, that's, DDK behavior. Also, what was I going to say? Something about the massive loss in the beginning. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, I feel like you can press on. Oh, yeah, I remember what I was going to say. When you have a taste for the kinds of mistakes your opponent might make, right? You may also be bad, right? You may also make mistakes, but if you start seeing like in the early game, like questionable moves and you're like, okay, they're definitely making bad moves. They're definitely making bad mistakes, but I also made a bad mistake. And if I tighten up my ship, I might still be able to turn the tide. I think that's probably what my mentality was, and it paid off. Continuing. Taijem players are good at exploiting weaknesses. They are nitty-gritty, dirty brawlers, and everyone should play against these types of people if they want to get strong, but don't learn etiquette from them. They have loads of bad habits to be exploited, and some of them will have thousands of games racked up only to be 15Q. It's a strange world where anything goes. Oh, so this is before I might have like understood some of these thousands of games accounts. May not be fully like a single person playing those games. Some people think they're bots. Some people think they're like club accounts. I don't know. I can't say. But yeah, I mean, I've seen that in my experience, the Asian servers, they have a lot more of improper play, because the Westerners, they like to go to book knowledge. They like to be proper. They like to learn on YouTube from people who know what they're doing. They like to read books and learn how to play this game properly. And it's like the study part of it is a hobby, and it's part of the hobby that is enriching. But I think what I'm getting is from people in the East. Since Go is a little more ubiquitous, I think they just kind of jump in and they don't really think about reading about Go, and they just kind of want to test their might by playing just without knowing anything. And the way they develop their skill that way, it leads to, if you find this like East versus West style gameplay among amateurs, you will see the West raising their eyebrows at a lot of the East moves, and then the Eastern ones will still strangle the Western players because they just have this like tactical strength to them, because they just kind of go in, grind out the games. Continuing to say something off of what I previously wrote, I have begun to have more moments of quote unquote strategic thinking. That is, I look at the whole board and think, what can I do to shift this into my advantage? Then I try my hand at a local play. I am having trouble with where to begin in terms of reductions and invasions, so I just sort of plop a stone down and see what happens. Yeah, I remember doing that a lot. That's the end of the entry. I remember not knowing how to invade. I'm still not really good at invading, but I kind of have an idea of what could lead to something that's viable. But back then I was so experimental, and I have no idea what I'm doing, so I'm just going to put a stone down. And come to think of it, when I review some DDK games, I see this happen. I see these players put stones down in the middle of nowhere, and my initial thought is like, don't do that, right? Don't go in without multiple escape routes. Don't go in too late, right? After you've already built up so much, or let them build up so much of a moyo, then you decide to invade. What's going on? And it's just like, I guess when you're just learning the game, these things don't register. They seem so obvious once you know. And that's with like so much of Go, that once you have the knowledge, it just looks so clear as day and obvious. But then when you go back into how you used to think, it's not as obvious. So it's got to be something to remember when you're trying to teach someone. But yeah, the other comment about strategic thinking was interesting. It's just like a common theme. As I described at the top of the episode, there's a point in time when you do have to zoom out and think, okay, what's the strategy here? But it's really hard to do that because you start off in a tactical mindset, maybe. Right. Well, first off is opening. Opening isn't really a certain mindset. It's somewhat strategic, but then you inevitably get into some kind of scuffle, and you're so into a tactical mindset that you forget to zoom out, and then you kind of like fight into a corner, right? You fight not literally into one of the corners, but like fight yourself into a corner in a position where strategy was actually bad for this fight, but it's too late because you engaged so much in it. And it's really hard to come back from that. So this whole zoom in, zoom out thing in Go, I feel like is very important to get a handle on. Okay, so that was Dirty Brawlers of TieGem. Next entry is super short. It's the next day. It's called Chasing a Dragon, and I'm still OGS 13Q, TieGem 14Q. Today I lost. I made some poor choices, but then managed to poke out all my opponent's eyes. He had a huge dragon. I was willing to sacrifice anything and everything to kill it. He did struggle for a bit, but it turns out that dragons are hard to slay. Man. I generally liked to write these entries when I win a game because winning a game gave me a rush and made me passionate about Go, made me want to talk about Go. So this is one of the rare I lost entries, or maybe I forced myself to write. But yeah, dragon fights. That's another thing I don't really see much of nowadays. I am engaged in one now, I think, or am I? I don't know. It just doesn't really happen as much, and that's kind of saddening to me. I feel like dragon fights shouldn't be limited to the lower levels. I have seen higher level dragon play, and I feel like that's what I would want out of my games is nothing alive. I love it when the game has ultimate tension, right? Just complete tension. Nothing is settled. Everything is just kind of like balancing, right? It's a balancing act of a whole bunch of groups. Your opponent's trying to make sure things have enough room, and it's like you have to make this decision. You have to figure out how to resolve these two groups that are hanging on by a thread. I love that. Those are the types of games. If I could force the game to be that way, I would. And maybe part of what's holding me back from doing that is because I want to try to play properly. I want to make strong moves, predictable moves, but maybe I should change it up. I don't know. It's hard when I'm playing Correspondence. It's because it's like Correspondence is like the least impulsive way to play a game. But yeah, dragon fights, they don't come as often nowadays. Okay, moving on to Valentine's Day in 2019. This is a few days after the previous entry. This one's called Making Deals. OGS 12Q. TieGem 15Q. Okay, back to my other ranks. I beat a 10Q player on OGS today. I had 2 handicap stones, but I beat him pretty solidly. I want to learn the next level of strategy. Forgot that handicap stones are a thing on OGS. I don't think I am doing anything very clever. I read out fights and make sure my stones are connected. It's a weird feeling. How could I have been weaker than I am now? Why wasn't I able to see those tricky Ataris before, and now they are second nature to me? Why am I no longer getting cut and destroyed in the endgame, and now I have spare moves to fortify my weak points? These questions are likely to be answered when the question of why I am not stronger already can be answered. I know now my brain is constantly scanning for potential disasters, and I know when to be so hungry and learn to settle with what I have. Okay. It's a solid question, right? Like, how did I learn these things? Why do I know these things? And I think it's just experience, right? It's maybe it's just a simplistic answer, and we could go into it in more detail. But to really just put it simply, experience is a teacher, and having seen things before, it's crazy how much that helps. Someone who grew up playing video games, if you watch that person play a new game, especially particularly one involving puzzles, and then you have another player who just started playing video games and you see the way they tackle that, it's very, very different. You see the player who is used to playing games understand visual cues, right? Understand game design. They know, oh, this level has this item placed right on a pedestal here, meaning it's going to be relevant to the next part, or this color matches up with this button, and that's why I feel like I should try something with those two. This sounds very logical when you say it out loud, but if you didn't grow up playing video games, it's not natural to you, right? You might think in more of like a worldly matter, right? It's like, well, I've got this fork item, let's try it on the turkey. And it's like, well, no, that has nothing to do with the turkey. The turkey is just decoration. I don't know, something like, it's just the logic of a game, right? Of a level design. It doesn't come naturally to you. So, and that's because you've experienced so much, right? You've experienced this over and over again. And the same thing for Go. You experience all this stuff where you see the Aji that turns into a nightmare for you. You see your group dying because it didn't have eye space. You see these cuts before they happen. You see these shapes before they happen. And all of that just kind of builds into an internal knowledge of all the stuff that you can do. And it just leads to better Go. And that's one of the great things about the game. I noticed something in my play today. It's funny because it seems that strength is observed in the self after it already has attained it, and never in other players before one has the strength of that player. There's a part of me that is learning to play Go, and the talking, analyzing side is only there to see what I am doing. What I noticed was that I was fine with letting my opponent make eyes in my territory as long as I got the better of it. It doesn't have to be much better, of course. You'd like it to be much better, but by that logic, you'd prefer to kill every single one of your opponent's stones. And you know that isn't possible unless your opponent is, well, let's not call anybody names. The point is that when I calculate each exchange, I am just telling myself, my opponent may get this piece, but I'll get this bigger piece. This sure small profit is much better than risking all my savings for the big money. And by playing this way, my opponent may get greedy and I may score big anyway due to his carelessness. I can guess that as you reach higher and higher levels of play, you begin to negotiate on the knife's edge as your vision gets sharper and sharper. I'm excited. Well, you can tell I am passionate about the game at this point. The trade thing, the value, that's something I feel like I said several episodes back. Just you try not to get all of it, right? You just have to win like 1% of the deal. Even trades are good because it doesn't hurt you. And I feel like I should try this more too, because like I'm realizing now that I try to get too much sometimes too. But imagine like you go into the game and your goal is to make even trades and just not make any bad trades. If you do that successfully, you are going to win because your opponent is going to make a bad trade. It's just how it is. And so I think the thing is that we want to make trades that are overly ambitious because we know we make bad trades and we're trying to cover up. But if we focus on stopping the bad trades, right? And instead of forcing these trades that are overly favorable for yourself, I feel like that's a more balanced way to play. I always have these like moments when I have this epiphany of like a different mentality, a different approach or attitude to approach the game with. And it makes me want to try it out immediately. And then I forget about it. Or like even halfway through the game, I might forget about it because I get so caught up in the game itself. But I do want to try that out. I want to go back and try what happens when I try to play as evenly as possible, right? Without trying to take advantages, unless they're freely given to me, right? Obviously, if somebody gives you a free Panuki, you got to take it, right? You just got to take it. I'm just saying, like, don't try to force that free Panuki. It says, I said, I can guess as you reach higher and higher levels of play, you begin to negotiate on the knife's edge and your vision gets sharper and sharper. That's probably true. But as I am several stones stronger than this version of Justin, I don't feel like I'm negotiating on the knife's edge. I think as I learn things, I think this is what the crazy thing about Go is. It's that as you gain strength, the things you learn just seem so obvious. I don't know what it is. It's crazy, right? It's like, if it's so obvious, it should be easy to teach and it should be easy to pass down to lower levels and they should be able to instantly upgrade to your level. But I think maybe you just need a foundation of Go knowledge for those things to become obvious. But it just seems like so much stuff that I didn't know before and I know now. It's just like, why couldn't you figure that out before? That's so obvious that, right? And so to comment on this, like negotiating on a knife's edge, it just doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel like I'm on a knife's edge at all. To someone weaker than I, it may appear that way. I might look at a trade and go like, wow, that's crazy for white. And that other player who is not as experienced as I might look at it and go, well, I guess it kind of looks better for white. And if we just look at it, it's like, it's not really on the knife's edge. It just appears that way for someone who doesn't have the vision for it. And so, yeah, it's a fun game. Go is a fun game. It's played on a lot of tension. P.S. Oh, and I've also started playing chess just against AI on my app. One thing I noticed about both games, very, very similar feelings arise from them, is that they both involve looking around, quote unquote. It is not enough to try one path of victory, but to check all variations at least a little bit. You can never assume that you know a situation unless you've really peeked your head around every corner. Yeah, that's definitely a thing for chess and Go, right? You look around. I think you could kind of call it reading, or I think in chess it's called calculation. But you got to explore your options. You can't just do the first thing, right? I think these strategies games, these board games really capture that feeling of considering your options. It's obviously a thing in life and in other games and in sports and things like that. You obviously, as a, basketball player, have to choose. Am I going to shoot between this person or that person, or take the dribble up the court, right? Those are, sure, choices that you make, but they happen so quickly. And so much of it is driven by instinct. You can't just like think about it for a second, right? But in Go and in chess, you do have the time to actually consider your options, and so that's very much more amplified in those games. All right, we're gonna do one last entry today. This one is also a shorter entry. It's called Boring Baduk. And the rank here, OGS 12Q, Taigem 14Q. Written 4 days after the last one. I've been losing lately. Actually, I won a game today, but it didn't feel that great because I lost a huge chunk in the beginning and almost resigned. Man, this seems to happen a lot to me in this rank. If you continue to play after being at such a disadvantage in the opening, it is almost disrespectful to your opponent. But he did not win my respect yet, and as it turned out, he did not deserve it. I am finding that I need the Paduk to be interesting. It is a key to my enjoyment of the game. If the Paduk is boring, win or lose, I don't care. I don't know if I fully agree with this. I don't think that. Yeah, I don't really have this mentality. Maybe this was a passing perspective that I had, but I obviously want interesting games, and I like when there's more tension. But I think there is beauty to be had in the slower games, and even if it feels like nothing happened, I think you can still appreciate the beauty of such a game. I think maybe I was going in a sugar rush phase of Go, where I really liked all the kills and the drama and everything like that. But I think I've matured a little bit as a Go player, and I can appreciate the slow game and the big small decisions, right? You call it the temperature of a game, right? The temperature of a game, which is how critical the moves are in a given board state. And sometimes the game's temperature remains low throughout the whole game, so that there's no fully big critical move. But then that just makes those smaller moves even more amplified, where if those moves that you're playing seem like tit-for-tat moves at the time, those tit-for-tat moves are actually quite enormous because you never get a chance for those big landslide moves later on. So yeah, I feel like I don't really... I think I still prefer the big action games. I like the action games, and the ones where things happen, things are dying, things are in danger of death, over the proprietary, share dividing kind of Go. I still like all Go. I think if I win, that's what I want. I want to play good moves. I want to play beautiful Go. I want to play a game where I feel like I didn't make any crazy mistakes. I want a game where my opponent didn't make any crazy mistakes, although I welcome them very much and I like it when they make crazy mistakes. But if I want to really look at the game I'm trying to get out of Go, it's the one where we both try as hard as we could and we lived up to our potential. Like I said last time when we did a little bit of reading of my Go blog, I encourage you guys to create a Go journal or blog. You can just write it down on your own and not show anyone. It's all yours. But I think it's a very good thing to do. It's easy to forget your mentality and the mindset you had at certain points in your Go career. And it's fun to look back, and I feel like it helps you reflect on how you're playing and what you're trying to do. And I think it enriches the Go experience overall. This podcast right now, it's my Go journal, but and it's funny because I'm doubling up on it. So I'm reading my Go journal while I'm creating my audio version of a Go journal. And also, it's good to keep ranks. And I feel like, if there was an easier way, at least back then, to pair my SGFs or games along with my journals. I think I would have done that. And actually, I think I kind of did that a little bit more. Another fun way to keep a Go journal is to get the SGF of your game and write throughout the game. And it doesn't have to be just review mode, right? It can be about your feelings. It can be about what you're going through in the game. It doesn't even have to be about Go. If you're talking about Go in the little SGF and you start thinking about other things in life and you start rambling, that's totally up to you. I think the SGF file is a beautiful thing, and you can kind of just use it as a record, a historical record of your own. It's just tied to Go. Anyway, it's time for the DDK Advice Corner, and the tip of the day is choose the right size net for your fish. Now, I don't specifically mean the shape, the net or the geta kind of Go shape, but when you're trying to capture something, when you're trying to attack something, sometimes it's appropriate to use a stone to corner them very tightly. Sometimes it's better to back off and use a looser strategy. Let them swim around a bit before you close in, right? It's important to judge how far back you want to go. There are advantages and disadvantages, right? You go in tight. If you're successful, you're going to choke that group really quickly and it's going to probably die. But the risk is the tighter you go, the more opportunities they have for Aji. They might cut you, they might squirm out and poke a hole through your defense, and you may not really get them. Whereas the larger net, that might be good if they don't have eyes yet and it doesn't seem like they can make the space for two eyes within that space that you're allowing them. It can be a safer move because you have it's just a wider net, right? It's like they can't necessarily squirm out as easily. So, but on the other hand, if you go too wide, they might just be able to make two eyes within that space. So choose the right size. The important thing is to think about how much you want to back off to capture this group if you're trying to attack it. And now it's time for listener mail. Jasper writes, "You brought up Melee and Street Fighter in one show, so I wanted to add this. I am just beginning to play Go after a decade of fighting games, namely Super Smash Bros. Melee and Third Strike. Fighting games are similarly difficult to get into and require patience, self-reflection, and a willingness to lose endlessly. But Go takes it further, and I love this. And I'm noticing some of my skills are even transferring. Much of fighting games are about getting a feel for your opponent, asking them little questions and observing what they say. they may do the equivalent of Tanuki and reposition to answer with a question of their own. For example, if I threaten in this context or abstain here, what is their impulse? It is a dialogue that genuinely reveals who your opponent is. Thanks for your podcast. It's extremely helpful to understand the perspective of a Go player when you are just beginning. Thanks for writing in, Jasper. And I love, one of my favorite things to do is talk about Go in relation to something else, like fighting games. And I think one distinction I would make here between fighting games and Go is, okay, yes, fighting games, I understand fighting games is very mental, right? It's about psychology and about what they tend to do and things like that, and figuring out the behavior of your opponent. But the thing is, I think sometimes in fighting games, you can like test your opponent out and try something, but you go back on the ground and you're kind of reset. You're like, you didn't lose anything by doing that. You asked your question and then you got an answer and you're like, okay, I'm gonna see where we go from here. Of course, sometimes you ask that question and it may lead into something deeper and you may be, killed, right? But more often than not, I feel like if you're just asking a simple question about how you're going to react to a certain move, it can often lead to just a complete reset as to like nothing actually changed other than the knowledge of psychology. And you can even sacrifice a stock, right? You can sacrifice a stock to learn something about your opponent. I'm sure that happens, right? Or a life. In Go, it's a little different. You're not going to want to ask questions that are too committed. That if they answer the question in a way that's dangerous, then you may just spiral. You may spiral and lose the whole game that way. Whatever question you ask of your opponent in Go, it remains on the board. It's not reset. So you have to be careful in that. But like I said during this episode, I sussed out my opponent in one of the games that I was talking about in my blog, where I made a very bad mistake and lost a big group, but I saw their behavior. I saw that they weren't making very high quality moves, and I was able to use that to my advantage. So there is that. But I find it very difficult to make Go a psychological game. I find it like rare for that to happen. I find it that most games of Go are played in a pure sense of just who's playing good moves and who's playing bad moves. It's less psychological in that manner. But I would love to hear from anybody who has experience playing a more psychological game and advice about that. I feel like people don't usually talk about that as much, maybe because it's not as common. But anyway, very interesting comment and discussion topic. Thank you for writing in, Jasper. Aji8432 writes, today I learned I shouldn't listen to this podcast as I drive because it's far too distracting. In parentheses, jokingly referring to not listening to the podcast while playing Go. Oh yeah, well, driving, I mean, look, driving is built into our muscle memory, and I don't know if, like, I guess you should be focused on the road when you're driving. And if you're driving right now, this is an alert to make sure you're watching where you're going and and all that. But Go is like, it just takes so much of your brain, right? You just have to. You know what's funny? Do you guys do this where you go into a very busy parking lot when you're driving, and you have to turn down the volume so you could find a parking spot better and see the pedestrians better? Does that happen to you guys? Because that happens to me. I'm listening to music or a podcast or something, and I go into a busy zone. I go into a busy zone where I have to figure out, where am I going to go? Where am I going to turn? Where am I going to park? There's so many people walking by. I got to turn down the volume, right? That actually happens. And so I feel like it's just the most part driving is very autopilot. And, if you have experience as a driver, you don't need to fully, have like 100% of your brain capacity. It's like most of it is just routine, like follow the rules of traffic, like stay behind the car, stay under the speed limit, use your signal, turn right? It's just, as long as you follow a lot of those rules, you are very safe. All right, thanks for writing in, Aji. And then Solaro writes, I haven't finished the episode yet, but I gotta throw this in. I am one of those individuals that listens to music when playing Go, but it's a very specific kind of music. No lyrics, electronic rhythmic beats. Rhythmic beats. I have severe ADHD, and music, think modular synth or progressive house, really helps me enter flow state and dial in. I have too much squirrel brain, so music definitely helps me do the thing. I can focus over the board at club or tournament play, but that's already a quietish setting with not much going on. At home, with kids, partner, dog, whatnot, etc. Tuning things out and dialing in is a requirement to play. Okay, well, I can definitely see an argument there for if you have other noises going on, like having music can drown out those other things and then also give you a lot more focus. And then if I were to listen to music, I'm not totally opposed to it, right? I would be down to vibe and go. I would listen to something, without lyrics, something probably on the more peaceful side. I would maybe go some classical or chill step or something, right? If you listen to music like hip hop or something with a lot of lyrical focus, I'd love to know if anybody out there does that. That would be interesting. But yeah, I mean, this is like if you're trying to like rank up and you're trying to use 100% of your brain and just completely make sure all the variables are met, then maybe you can try a silent Go. But maybe if you listen to it regularly, it's just normal for you, and it doesn't really the brain does a lot to tune things out when it's not relevant information. So anyway, thanks for writing in, Solara. Sadaharu writes, one thing that may be related to System 1 and System 2 is Occam's razor. When many choices will lead to complicated results, sometimes it may be better to choose the easiest one for you. This way, the situation will be easier for you to manage, and thus the chances of winning will be higher. We can use System 2 briefly to consider some possible choices, but eventually choosing the one comfortable for you may end up in a better result. Of course, it may be wrong, but if it's wrong, we just learn from it and move on. Just like Einstein said, everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. Unless, of course, if you are losing, then you should make things more complicated so that the opponent has a higher chance of making mistakes. The way you write here, I think, speaks to the strong Go playing mentality, because the strong Go player knows that that the value of simplicity is basically what I'm trying to say. The stronger Go player knows the value of simplicity because, like you said, it's more comfortable for you, it's more predictable, and it doesn't lead to things that are strange and will mess you up later on. And like you said as well, if you're losing, make it complicated so that it can lead to things and mess people up. But some people are very good defensive players and they shut you down. I've tried, and I've failed sometimes to make things complicated when I'm on the outs. Thanks for writing in, Sadaharu. Bill Tetley writes, to your point about playing with no distractions, as a hyper ADHD person, I usually put on some variation of lo-fi chill, and that really helps slow down my brain versus playing in silence where I get overwhelmed with too many thoughts, ideas, etc. that can ruin my game. Well, I guess it doesn't apply to people with ADHD, because it can be a great tool to help. To have music playing, and if that assists your brain in focusing, then of course, none of these would be blanket statements. I think some people would be stronger with music, some people would be weaker with music. The point is, I think, to try to get your brain to focus and treat your brain right to be able to do that. For me, I think it's ultimate silence. But then I haven't tried the music route, so maybe I should try it out and see if I actually vibe better with it. Thanks for writing in. Pablo Parcel writes, please don't compare Malcolm Gladwell to Daniel Kahneman. Gladwell is a bad science communicator at best. Kahneman is a Nobel Prize winner in economics, one of the most cited scientists in social science, incredibly smart. Well, okay, I'm sorry. That actually convinces me to pick up Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman even more, because I wouldn't go as far as to say Gladwell is a bad science communicator, but I do have some critiques about his writing style and what he chooses to focus on sometimes. I think he's a great storyteller, and sometimes, and the anecdotes that he shares with a unifying theme, it's very interesting. But sometimes he can kind of make certain leaps that I don't quite agree with. So that does convince me to go more. It's just the cover, right? The cover of Thinking Fast and Slow, that type of cover, that book cover. I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but as a graphic designer, I actually do. That book cover just kind of communicates what kind of book it is, and it seems like a Malcolm Gladwell-esque type book. Not saying that they're comparable scientifically or anything like that. I'm just saying the audience. Anyway, thanks for letting me know. Decivian writes, going to listen to both of your podcasts. It's so fun to hear English-speaking people talk about Go without needing video feedback to follow/understand. And Decivian here is referring to the All Things Go podcast, where I was guesting on, and likewise Travis from All Things Go was on the show a couple weeks back. If you haven't checked that out, go ahead and check that out. And thanks for listening to both shows, Decivian, and that was totally the purpose of this show, which is why at the top of the episode I always say it's the show about Go for Go fans away from the board, so that you don't have to have a Go board in front of you. You can just listen while doing other things. And that's the point of the show. So thanks for acknowledging that. Thanks for writing in. Thank you all for writing in. If you want to write in and hear yourself on the podcast, answer me this. Do you like your games to be a certain way? Like I said, I like action-packed games versus the stable games where you're kind of trading tit for tat. Do you have a preference? Do you like action-packed games, or do you like calm ones, or is there another kind of game that you like? Share your thoughts on that with a comment wherever you found this episode, or email me directly at starpointpaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointbaduk@gmail.com. If you're a YouTube listener, I would greatly appreciate a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. If you're a podcast listener, reviews and ratings also help. A very, very special thank you to James B., Brendan S., Tristan, Jeff H., Tyraniton, and Andrew P. for supporting Starpoint. Thank you guys so much. If you want to support the show in any capacity, you can go to ko-fi.com/starpointpaduk. That's KO-FI, or check out the Starpoint store at store.starpointpaduk.com. And don't forget to join the Discord. You can find the link in the description. Okay, I'm kind of running dry on these jokes. I don't know how much longer I can go, but I got one for you today. What do you call an alien monkey man who plays Go? You know what I should do? I should ask the question of the joke, and then the next episode I'll give you the answer. I'm just kidding. I won't do that, but it would stretch it out a bit. The answer to an alien monkey man who plays Go is Goku. Thanks for listening. Keep playing Go.